welcome back to my channel, Hasty Books. I'm Camilla, and today I'm really excited because we have so many books to talk about. So many books. So today I'm diving into my May reading plan. It's gonna be more of like a pile of possibilities. I don't really want to do a TBR because I want May to be chill. Like, I just want to go with the flow. There's quite a few things I want to achieve, but I've picked different things for each. So it's gonna be a reading plan in 4 sections, and I'm hoping to, dip in and out of all of 4 of these kind of main reading projects that I have for the month, and we'll see, how it goes. And I just want to enjoy this reading experience that May will be. So without further ado, let's dive into the first category, which is not really a category because it's more like a random category. So basically it's just a couple books that I really want to read, and they're like a bit more specific. So I made this list before the month started, and that included Manifesto by Bernardine and Evaristo, and I've already finished it, but I thought I'd just mention it because also it's really nice. So yeah. The second book that I really want to read in May is Spring by Ali Smith. If you've been kind of following my channel or seen some of my videos, you may know that I'm kind of reading through her seasonal quartet at the moment. So I read Autumn and Winter, and obviously because it's May and it's so green and it's getting so much nicer, even though I'm wearing this woolly jumper right now, I thought it would still be really nice to read Spring at the moment, and I have some high hopes for it. I really enjoyed the first 2, so I'm kind of keen to get this one. I have the audiobook and it's quite short, so I know I will get to it this month. The third book on this TBR, well, I said it was a pile of possibilities, but this section is TBR because I really want to get to all 4 of these books. But the third book is Locas Mujeres, or Madwomen by Gabriela Mistral. This is because I really want to get started properly with my reading the Women of the Nobel Prize of Literature challenge that I've started, and I thought what better way to start than with the Chilean writer. I thought that would be fitting. It's a poetry collection and it's quite short, so I already have a copy of it, so I'm looking forward to diving into that. And finally, the last book that I really want to read, and I can't really mention it specifically because it is a book written by a friend, so it is her final draft, and yeah, I'm really excited. It's really cool to be able to support and encourage, and I don't know, just be there for friends who are authors. So I read her first chapter last year, and I still remember when I finished it, I was like, oh, I want to know what comes next, which is a great first chapter. And now she's asked me if I want to read the full manuscript, so I'm very keen. So I have to send her back comments by I think mid-June. So I'll have, into June as well to finish it and send her my comments and feedback. But I'm looking forward to it, and that's on my priority list as well. So the second section of this May reading plans is to read or finish reading the books for the Women's Prize for Fiction Shortlist. So I've done like loads of videos last week, reviewing the books I'd read and doing a reaction to the shortlist. I still haven't finished the 2 that I hadn't finished last week. I haven't read much into them, so I'll be continuing them. That includes Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I'm 150 pages in only, which means I have like 400 pages to go. At first, I think it was like earlier than I was like, oh my god, I have to like finish reading it so quick because I have to return it to the library in like 2 days. But turns out it's been auto-renewed, so I have all month to finish it, so I'll be reading it. I was getting a little bit dragged up by the Hadley timeline. I always want to like put the book down when I get to that point, but I need to persevere because I'm really enjoying Marianne's storyline. So yes. And the other one is The Bread the Devil Need by Lisa Allen-Agostini. I'm doing some headway with that, but I haven't really touched it that much since the shortlist reaction came out. And it's really brilliant, so I want to properly finish it. And I think there's been a lot of hopes that if the judges surprise us this year, it will be with this one as a winner, but we'll see. The other 2 books that I hadn't touched yet from the shortlist are The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. I saw that it's available on Audible. I don't like giving money to Amazon and stuff, but I think my husband has a free token with Audible, so I'll try to get him to get that so I can listen to it. So yeah, that'd be nice to get that. And the final one is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. I have 2 holds, not just one, I have 2 holds at the local library for this book, because one of them was supposed to come in April, but I haven't heard from it, and the other one is actually being acquired right now. So I've put hold on both, and I'm hoping one of them comes in before the shortlist is announced. And that is like mid-June as well, so I think that even if it comes early June, I'll probably have time to read it. So fingers crossed. I may not get to it in May, but it's on the list. The third section of this May reading plan is to continue with my classics TBR. If you've seen my Q1 check-in of my goals, you'll see that that's a goal that's not going that well. So I made a list of 22 classics I want to read in 2022 earlier this year, and it's not going well yet. I'm really only a couple books in, and I think I should be almost 10 books in now. I'm definitely not. So I thought I've put 5 on my list that I'd like to get to, but really I'm anticipating I'll probably only get to 2 or 3, but you know, I just thought I'd put this as my pile of possibilities for classics. So there are 5 titles on that list. The first is Anne of Avonlea by Lucy Maud Montgomery. This is the second in the Anne of Green Gables series, and it's obviously a Canadian classic. I read the first one as a buddy read with Jay from My Quarter Life Crisis last year, and it was so nice. She's such an effervescent character, and her language is so rich, and I just love her. But I've never read further down the series, so I have the second one. I have an audiobook for that one, and it's quite short, so I definitely think I'll have time to get to that this month. The second is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I've been kind of meaning to read this one for years. Like, I've had this copy for many years, and I think it's because it's a classic that you hear so much about, because people probably read it like in school. I feel like people who grew up in like English speaking area, or in the US anyway. So I kind of always meant to get to it, and so I decided to finally read it. I've started, I'm a couple pages in, and yeah, it's fine for now. I have no idea if this is an abridged version, because it seems quite short, but it is written quite small, so we'll see. But yeah, so that's the second one. The third book is Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. I want to read all of the Brontes this year, so in chronological order, the next one on the list is Agnes Grey. So I have the audiobook for that one as well, and I think it's shorter than like some of the other books, so I think I'll also be able to get to that one. And talking of short audiobook, the next book on the list is Jacob's Room by Virginia Woolf. I'm also trying to read all of Virginia Woolf this year. You can tell that I'm an not even overachiever, just over planner, more like. So yeah, so the next one, again in chronological order of publication, is Jacob's Room, which comes after The Voyage Out and Night and Day, I want to say, which is like, I read that in January and February, and I haven't read a Woolf since. So yeah, I'm gonna dive into Jacob's Room. It's really interesting. At the moment I've started it, and it's a short-ish audiobook, and it's basically going through the life, like the childhood and life of Jacob, but through the perspective of other characters. So it's a very interesting kind of written technique. So I'm enjoying up to now. I think my enjoyment of Virginia Woolf has been going up with each novel, which I like. And finally, the last book, and I don't know if I'll have time to get to it, but it's Go Tell It on the Mountain by James Baldwin. I actually have a hold on that book at the library that keeps coming in. Like, it's on my Libby app actually, and I keep being like, oh, give it back to me in 2 weeks. And I think I've been doing that for 3 months, and I realized it's actually quite short, so I'll try to get to it, but we'll see. I don't want to say I will read it this month, but I definitely want to make some headway in it, you know? So these were the 5 classics that I would like to get to, but that's very much a pile of possibilities of its own. And finally, the last section is that I want to participate in the historical fiction readathon hosted by Katie of Books and Things. I kind of realized that I really enjoy historical fiction. I didn't used to think of it as a genre of its own. I used to be like, oh yeah, I read like The Book Thief and enjoyed it, or like, you know, different things. And I realized, I think it's in the Storygraph, that I read quite a lot of historical fiction and I enjoy it a lot actually. So I thought, why not get, you know, involved in this readathon. I won't be obviously dedicating the whole month to it, but I'm hoping to get a few in. All right, so let's go through the prompts, and there are 7 plus a bonus prompt. So the first one is read a work of historical fiction that is set in your country, in the country that you're from. As you know, I'm from Canada, and more specifically from Quebec, and I really wanted to read something from the region that I'm from, and hopefully in French first, because I don't read enough from that region, and I definitely haven't read like a lot of historical fiction like since school, so I thought it'd be really nice, but I was really struggling to get to find books that I had access to that are historical fiction from Quebec, until I found this brick in my shelf in the bedroom. So the shelf that is right next to the bed is basically the books that I'm trying and hoping to get to soon, and by soon I mean like weeks, months, years to come, whatever. And this one was in there because I really wanted to get to it whenever I, you know, set this library up last year, and I haven't touched it. I totally forgot that it was even there. But yeah, it's a big chunky. It's La fiancée americaine, the American fiancée. It's not a big translation, by Éric Dupont. I don't really know when this is set, but I definitely know it's historical fiction. But yes, I think this is multi-generational as well, so it's, I think, across a multiple perspective and timelines. So I think that'll be interesting. I don't think I'll get to finish this month unless I really love it and can't stop reading it. It is almost 900 pages. Is that correct? Yeah, 874 pages. I mean, it's written quite large, but you know, still, it's quite a brick. So yeah. But it also fits the last prompt, or the bonus prompt, which is to read a work of historical fiction that is over 500 pages. This one definitely is, so that counts. Although, will it count if I don't finish it? Well, if I get over 500 pages, I'll count it. The second prompt is to read a work of historical fiction set in a country that you're not from, basically. And that's sort of easy for me because obviously the majority of the work of historical fiction that I read or that I have or that I'm interested in are set in the UK or the US, so I'm not from those countries, so it's easy. But I specifically wanted to highlight a work of historical fiction that I really want to get to this month, and it's an audiobook as well, which I find it just easier to get to than obviously physical books. So it's She Would Be King by Wayétu. This is a historical fiction set at kind of the birth of Liberia, when the country gained its independence in, I believe it's 1847. So very interesting. I've only read one more thing from Liberia, and it's also by Wayétu. It was her memoir. I believe it came out last year, the year before, and it was really good. I feel like I learned so much, and it was really nice to get her personal experience, and yeah, it was really interesting. That was set later, obviously, because it was set more around the Civil War and obviously her family escaping the country. And this is set kind of further back in more history and like who settled there, and that sounds really interesting. Number 3 is read a work of historical fiction set in your favorite historical time period to read about. And I was like, do I have a favorite historical time period? I don't know if I really do. There are time periods that I'm kind of getting tired of reading about. I feel like a lot of them are always on those periods. But then I was thinking, you know, I've recently finished rewatching Bridgerton, and I was like, I kind of like Regency kind of style and Jane Austen type, you know? So I thought I'd go with that, and I have 2 books to mention. The first is Reputation by Lex Croucher, and I got this one here. You'll see it's from Rare Birds Book Club, which is a kind of bookshop and book club based in Edinburgh. I didn't finish it, so I got this last year. I'm 150 pages in actually, so I really don't, well, I have like maybe 250 pages left, so it's not that bad, but I wasn't loving it, but also I didn't want to DNF it. I felt like I just needed to be more in the mood, and maybe I'll be in the mood this month, who knows, but I really want to finish it at some point. And the second one that I want to mention was actually Georgette, if that's how you pronounce it. I learned about her basically when I did I think it was on Penguin website. They were like, oh, if you like Bridgerton, here are the books that you could read. And they mentioned Georgette. And then I think it was Elizabeth from Bouquins and Books, who mentioned reading one. I think it was recently. And I was like, oh, like it comes really well recommended, and I think it sounds like really good. Like I think she was like a major writer of like historical Regency. So yeah, I'll give it a try. I started yesterday the Grand Sophy. That's the one that I'll try anyway as my first hair. So prompt number 4 is read a work of historical fiction set in a time period that you're less familiar with. And I wasn't really sure. I feel like I'm not very familiar with loads of them. But anyway, I saw that I had this in my bookshelf, which is Learwife by J.R. Thorpe. This is a retelling of King Lear from the perspective of his wife, who is mostly absent from the story. So I thought that sounded like a really cool thing, which is why I bought it. I had to Google when King Lear is based, and apparently it's based in the 8th century. Is it BC? Anyway, I don't really know, but apparently I was reading on like study.com or whatever, and they were like, it's obviously supposed to be based in 8th century BC, but it obviously has like 17th century tropes and customs, because obviously it's a twist that Shakespeare has added to like his story, basically. So I think that is fair to say that this would fit, because I think technically not Shakespearean time, you know? So yeah, we'll see. I feel like this counts. Next is prompt number 5, which is to read a work of historical fiction with a speculative element. And I had to Google it, because at first I was like, what does it mean? Like, magical realism, fantasy, but historical fiction? Is it historical fiction if it's fantasy? I was confused and I didn't know where to go with that. But anyway, I found that I have quite a few that fit. So, made a pile on the wrong. All right. So the first one is The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is the second one in the series of this. Is it a Cemetery of Forgotten Books? Something like that. And I feel like this is magical realism, so therefore it fits. And it's based, is it still based around the Second World War? My first time came one faraway day in December 1917. Alright, I don't know when the book is set, but it's historical fiction anyway. And it has magical realism. If it has the same vibe as the first book, which was the Shadow of the Wind, that's it. I just really enjoy Zafón's work actually, and I hope that one day I can actually tackle all of his books. That'd be really cool. Next, and I realize it doesn't technically fit historical fiction, because the actual definition of it is that it's supposed to be 60 years in the past. Therefore, stuff written now should be at least like from 1962, I'm guessing, something like that. So it has to be based before that. And this is based in the 80s, so it's really not, but it's based before I was born. So I feel like that's fair enough, you know? That's in the past, that's historical if I wasn't born. But I just wanted to highlight this because it is really fun. I started it last year as well, and then I wasn't quite in the mood for it. It was a little bit more sort of basic than I expected. So it's We Read Upon Sticks by Quan Barry, and it's basically a novel of it's like nostalgia of like the 80s, and it's a team, I think it's hockey. Yeah, these are field hockey sticks. So it's a girls team, and basically to win they basically sign like their life away, whatever it is, their soul, and become sort of like a coven, which is the whole thing, as well as We Write Upon Sticks. And I think that's a kind of cool little speculative element, although it's not technically historical fiction. And the last one I want to mention was actually Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. So, which I also got as the book club pick. So when I was Googling historical fiction with speculative element, this came up, but I feel like this isn't historical fiction. But also, I have no idea what this book is about, and no one can really summarize it. So if you've read it, can you please tell me if this is technically historical fiction or if it's just pure fantasy? Because I don't really know. I'm very keen to read it. I think it's the book that won the Women's Prize last year, and it's quite short actually. And I've heard only good things, although I heard that it's weird, but I've heard only good things, so I need to get to it at some point. Next is read a work of historical fiction about a real historical figure or specific historical event. And my pick for that one technically doesn't fit again, but we'll go with it. It's Borges and Me by J. Perini. So yeah, it doesn't really fit the brief in two ways. The first is that this is technically autofiction, so it's not really fiction, it's like a fictionalized memoir. So this basically happened to J. Perini. He actually met Borges and went on a road trip around the Scottish Highlands with him. But it's been fictionalized, so that's why it's kind of technically autofiction. But also it's technically based in the 70s, which obviously is a little bit too late in the day to be historical fiction, but I still feel like it works. And this is part also of the book haul that I did early in the year, and I've been really inspired by a couple of booktubers, including Nyx from Nyx Reads, who are buying books and then actually reading them. Novel concept, I know, but I think that I really need to do that. Like if I'm excited about a book and I go out of my way to buy it, I feel like I should want to read it. And I know I won't get over that completely. This is part of my personality now, but also I think it'd be really nice, and I've been quite excited about this book. And finally, the last prompt is read a classic work of historical fiction. And again, I had to Google like, what does it mean? So it has to be basically a classic, so obviously written like longer than now, and it has to be the itself historical fiction. So technically something written in like 1900 would have to be based in like 1840 for it to be a classic of historical fiction. Yeah, I really struggled to find something that I really wanted to get to. There was a couple things I think they included like Sir Walter Scott and stuff like that that obviously were classic, that are historical fiction in themselves, but I didn't want to just pick a book just to pick a book. I want to pick something that I would get to. And although it doesn't completely fit, I decided to go with To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Technically, this was written or published in 1960, I believe, and it is set in the 30s. So it's not 60 years in the past, but it still feels like historical enough, right? It's in the past and the past. So I think, these are loose rules. I'm reading historical fiction. It's all good, And like I said before, the bonus prompt is to read a work of historical fiction that is over 500 pages, which obviously I have this Quebec book. But I also just wanted to mention The Little Friend by Donna Tartt because I'm in the midst of reading it and I'm very slowly making my way through it. I probably won't finish it this month. Probably it'll go for June or July, but we'll see. So this is technically a bit like To Kill a Mockingbird. It's kind of only 30 years. So this was published in 2002 and it's technically based in the 70s. So it's technically not historical fiction, but it feels like it anyway. And I'm getting a really similar vibe as To Kill a Mockingbird. Obviously, I've started both of these. It's very like white American South. So yeah, I'm not loving that vibe up to now, but I think it's not helpful that with this it starts with the death of a child, which I won't give the details obviously, but it's quite rough. And it's not pulled me in as much as The Goldfinch or The Secret History, because both of those I feel like I was really into the story and this one not so much, but I want to keep going anyway. But yes, so these were the prompts for the historical fiction readathon, which is really exciting. This is going to be a really long video, so I'm going to wrap this up really quickly and just say these are kind of the books that I sort of want to maybe get to this month. But I'm open to it. That's why it's a pile of possibilities. I'll see when the mood strikes which book I want to pick, but there's so many options and that always makes me happy to be surrounded by books. So it's really nice. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned and if you've liked them or not. Which one do you recommend I start with? If there's one that you think is a vibe that I would go with more. And as always, don't hesitate to leave like a comment, a like, and to subscribe to my videos. There is always more coming, and I have some exciting projects coming up that I'm filming and it's really cool. So yes, anyway, thank you for watching and hey, see you. Bye!